badge too.
Everybody here? Looks like it. If everybody's here and I don't hear from anyone otherwise, I suggest we get started. Okay. Well, just very, very briefly, everyone. I know that we're all glad to be able to get together as the City Council and the County Commission for a joint meeting on intergovernmental cooperation issues. There's a long history of intergovernmental cooperation between the city and the county, and it's been to the mutual benefit of the agencies and the citizens in Albany County for some time. I also don't think that it's any secret that there is a need for identifying areas where we can work together, and not for several reasons, not the least of which being that the fiscal situation for the state and the local governments is in flux, and that gives us an added incentive along with the usual reasons that we might have for trying to identify areas where we can cooperate and help each other, and in doing so stretch the resources that we have to serve citizens in the county and the city as best we can. I think that's all I would say to get us started, and turn it over to Commissioner Gosar for anything he wanted to add before we dive into the details.
Well, thanks, Mayor Weaver, and honorable councilors. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys tonight. Not really sure. Mayor Weaver and I discussed going forward what we would do. And so I think it'll be more of a kind of a free-flowing conversation about items or processes that we could work together, or maybe those birds that are under each one of our saddles, and maybe we could start to work on those. We look forward, as Mayor Weaver said, to working collaboratively. Not only do I think it's better governance, I think citizens in both the city and the county would benefit from it. And in a world of reducing monetary distributions by the state, I think we're going to have to make the buck go a little bit further. So it's nice to finally have the commission seated, and of course your council seated. And I would just introduce you, Commissioner Ibarra on my right, Commissioner Richardson on my left. We have Jackie Gonzalez, the county clerk, with us, Peggy Trent, the county attorney, the sheriff, Aaron Applehands, and we have Kayla White, who's with the county clerk, the assistant county clerk. Is that the title? Deputy, excuse me. Sorry about that, Kayla. Deputy county clerk. So that's who we have here, and we're handing over to you, Mayor Weaver.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and appreciate the introductions around to let us know who was there. And by way of introduction, for the sake of brevity, I would just say that we have the full City Council. We have our newest member, Council Member Sharon Cumby, with us this evening, and returning after hiatus, Council Member Somerville. And I believe other folks have been here and in meetings with yourself, Commissioner Gosar, and yourself, Commissioner Richardson, and Sue, Commissioner Ibarra. Shouldn't call you by first name. We will get to know each other as we go through the process here. And of course, we have our city staff members, City Manager Jenny Jordan, our City Clerk Nancy Bartholomew. I'm not sure if we have our City Attorney Bob Southard. Yes, there he is. I see we have some other folks here for intergovernmental cooperation stuff. I see Dave Gertsch welcome. Thank you for being here. And we have our staff members from across departments in the city, Police Chief Dale Stalder, Brooks Webb, who heads our Public Works Department. And if I've missed anyone, I do apologize. It's not intentional. We'll get a chance for folks to speak up and speak to issues as we move along. It sounds like from the outset that we're on the same page about what we want to achieve with this meeting, so that's a good start. I think the suggestion that we keep it free flowing is a good one, and we will do that. I think what we should do to begin is we will go around and have folks give 2 or 3 suggestions as to what they think are the pressing areas for intergovernmental cooperation between the city and the county. And as Commissioner Gosar says, areas where we feel like it's important for us to find and identify ways to work together. And also if there are areas where you have concerns that you feel like we need to address, you can mix those in. Or perhaps they're one and the same between areas where you think we need to identify opportunities for cooperation and also concerns you might have about those. And I'd like to sort of just quickly kind of do a round robin, giving folks each just a few minutes to address those. And then we'll come back again. And I think we may get a general sense for those things. Does anyone have any objection to that process? If you feel good about that, just give a thumbs up. Councilor O'Doherty, I think you were.
Point of order. I
Yes,
thought
please.
that we still have the public comment period before the work session. It says work session, public comment, work session. So,
City Clerk, thank you, Councilor O'Doherty. Did we have anyone sign up for public comments for this portion of the meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did not receive any notifications via email or phone.
All right. So what I would say with respect to that matter is that as we go along after some time addressing topics with the commissioners, if there are matters that we discuss on the intergovernmental cooperation topic, we will provide an opportunity for some feedback, and then we will have a public comment period at the close of the work session and allow folks to share whatever comment and input they have at that time, since we didn't have anyone sign up prior. Are there any other comments about our process before we move forward? All right. So I'd like to try to have some order to this, but I will turn it over to Councilor Cumby to get us started with 2 or 3 items that Councilor Cumby believes that we should bring to the top. And the idea here is I think we'll start to see if there's some commonality in the group. Are you comfortable with that, Councilmember Cumby? Great.
Well, I think first on my list is working with county commissioners to refine the aquifer protection plan, to work on that wording, and then to integrate some of the current science into the plan and to establish methods for monitoring. Related to that, I would like for us to continue working on water use agreements from the university. Another issue that I really came into the election concerned about is the state of rentals in Laramie. And I think that that's something that the county and the city could work on to establish standards for rental property. Those are a few. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Cumby. Councilor Gabriel, why don't you go ahead with anything you might like to add, bring up? Oh, Councilor Gabriel, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think your microphone was off.
There we go.
There you
How
go.
we doing?
Pretty good. Thanks.
Good,
Can hear you
good.
good. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Aquifer protection is on the top of my list. And then I was reading the other night, some light reading before bed, the county commission minutes. And they talked about a joint environmental advisory joint powers board that they wanted to talk to the city about. They were going to talk with the city attorney and other city officials. So I'm interested in that because it just mentioned kind of in passing that that's something the county commissioners wanted to bring up with the city. So certainly aquifer protection. And as Heber always says, the devil's in the details on that. And so hopefully we can come to some kind of agreement. And then just environmental issues in general. That would be my two top issues to discuss.
Appreciate that. And I think what we'll do here is we'll do a ratio of 3-to-1, since that's about the split between council members and commissioners. So I'm going to go with one more council member, and then we'll get some input from member of the commissioner, as long as nobody's raising objections. These aren't concrete rules here. Councilor Harrington.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the Casper Aquifer Protection Plan would be top of list for me. To add something new to the list, I think development in the sort of donut area around the city would be on my list as well. Sort of working with you all to figure out how we can do that. And then a third item that I would say is, if those two are up here, this one's down here off the screen. Finding ways that we can find efficiencies by working together on like shared employees. See if we can find ways to stretch one position across both organizations if they are part-time or less. Might be worth exploring. Again, that's lower on my list.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Gosar, who's eager from the Board of Commissioners to go first on this?
Well, we'll go with our ranking member here, Commissioner Richardson. Commissioner Richardson, take it away, please.
Okay. I would like to see us work together on an extraterritorial growth plan. That would deal with the rental issue. A lot of the reason why rentals, people can rent substandard property inside the city is because the city is somewhat anti-growth. And if we find a way to let builders build, they'll replace garbage properties with things that people want to live in, and then that will require, it will leave the junky ones vacant, and it will require people to fix them. I don't see any regulatory business in that. And the city has home rules, so we commissioners can't have any effect on the inside working with the city. That's a city thing. And with respect to the extraterritorial, what I would say is a growth plan, I'm concerned that the city's going to get boxed in by development in the county. And so there has to be a way that the regulations and process incentivize developers to ask for annexation and develop at a higher density. Otherwise, the city's going to get boxed in, and we'll have issues like Cheyenne has had for some decades. With respect to the Casper Aquifer, I would like to see us work together on that. Keeping in mind that since we completed the Pilot Hill project, the public-private conflict has been dramatically reduced, and the developable land up there is greatly diminished. So I want to work on that with the city, but keeping in mind that that is an ever diminishing problem as it comes to development, because people are running out of places to develop. At least up gradient from the city develops. So those are a few things.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that, Commissioner Richardson, and I think I'm encouraged by the fact that there are already some things that some consensus already taking shape there on a couple of issues. That's a good deal. Councilmember Schuster, you're up if you're okay.
Fine to talk. Things have been brought up are great. I don't have anything to add to the list at this time. Thank you very much.
All right, appreciate that. Let's go to Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine is very similar to what's already been described. Casper Aquifer is top of the list. Intergovernmental agreements ranging from jail to ETJ. All of those I think would be good to kind of flesh those out and work together on. Also interested in Councilor Harrington's idea about finding efficiencies between the city and the county where we can work together.
Great. I appreciate that. Let's go to Councilmember Stalder.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think a lot of the really big points have really been brought up, especially the aquifer. A big one for me, as several people have already brought up, is development, sort of in that donut, and just what that looks like, what's a responsible plan for that. My other thought is, how do we promote tourism? That sounds weird to say in COVID, but I think with the Pilot Hill, we have an opportunity for some outdoor recreation, and incentivizing that will help our small businesses out, if we can do that safely. The airport board, which is a joint board between the city and the county, is wrapping up on their new terminal. And so all that stuff's exciting. And I think as we sort of maybe hopefully find a world after COVID, what can we do together to promote people coming to Laramie? That's all.
I appreciate that. Commissioner Gosar, Chairman Gosar, over to you.
All right, how about Commissioner Ibarra, please?
Okay, thank you. Top of my list is aquifer protection, aquifer protection overlay zone. And I think I would echo some of the growth, maybe the issues with the development and all, so maybe a comprehensive plan as far as development in the city and the county.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right. Well, back to the council members over to our side, and this is going exactly how I hoped it would. We'd do a quick round robin here at the beginning, and then we'll have a little bit of time to dig a little bit deeper. Councilmember O'Doherty, what would you like to share?
My main thing is also aquifer protection, environmental protection in general, and how we can work together and save some time and energy. The other thing is the cooperation with our law enforcement, and one of the big things is for me is that poverty is such a serious issue in this county. And are there ways that, if we've learned that the detention center becomes a de facto place for people with mental illness, and I know that several hotels serve that way, so people with mental illness that also suffer from poverty because of the illness. So anyway, are there ways that we could try to work together to find some solutions there, and also the just general government efficiency. What can we share to save some money? That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Doherty. I appreciate that. Vice Mayor Pierce?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm gonna try not to mention things that already have been mentioned, or maybe kind of fill in a couple of the gaps, perhaps. I think we need a agreement related to our wastewater treatment facility and facilities, plural. I also think, and it was kind of hinted upon, having to do with the adoption of some sort of cooperative agreement in terms of economic development. And the other thing I've been thinking about is we've got a fair amount of documents, comprehensive plans. If we could maybe merge, and I know this is huge, obviously, but if we could merge some of those comprehensive plans, I think that really might help. And then that's it for me.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Vice Mayor Pierce. For my part, I would just endorse a great deal of what I've already heard from members here of the City Council, and also express agreement with what I've heard from the commissioners on the issues that already seem to be shaping up to be consensus issues, it seems, around the table, if you will. And I would add too that one area that I think has been identified and we discussed just briefly at our City Council retreat was the need for maybe finding ways to team up to provide some awareness for the public about the roles that the county government and the city government play, and what some of the different jurisdictional issues are there, where some authority is vested in the county government and not so much in the city government, and vice versa, around a couple of areas over the last year or so. I believe it would have been beneficial for residents in Laramie and across Albany County to understand where some of those lines are drawn in terms of law enforcement, public health measures, and where that differentiation is meaningful, and where there's some overlap, and maybe finding ways to team up to raise awareness around those things. A lot of folks are familiar with some of those issues, and I think a lot of folks aren't. And I think it's helpful to empower citizens with a good understanding of what the different roles their local government plays are. Other than that, I would just endorse a great deal of what I've already heard. Over to you, Chairman Gosar.
Thank you, Paul. And just for the commissioners, if you'll just speak into your mic, I guess it's hard to hear us a little bit. It's the report I'm getting. So, yeah, I would echo most of what was talked about. Certainly, aquifer protection, extraterritorial. I think talking about the county detention facility and ways forward with that. I know that's been a long-running discussion, but we'll figure this one out. And so I think we ought to. I thought about what Councilor Harrington said, and as we understand, we're in a kind of a part of flux in some of our positions. We will have looking for a new engineer. Bill is retiring at the end of July. We have a grants department that we could use some assistance with. I think about COVID and how I'm not sure you guys were inundated with vaccination requests, or where do we get that information? A public information officer surely would have been nice if that was something that we could share. I'm pretty sure we couldn't do it full time from our budget, but these are just some ideas about where do we take our bodies to the next level, right? Do we engage with people and ask them to become part of the organization? We're going to try. We're going to try to move to evening meetings. We're going to try to make sure live streaming is always a part of what we are, using comments taken from online instead of having somebody to be in public. Those are things we're discussing right now, and with all the hopes that we can get more people to engage with us. And you guys are a really important part of that engagement, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate those updates about some of the direction. And I'm hearing you all right. So I think that's coming through okay. But yeah, I appreciate whoever was passing that along about the sound levels. I think if there isn't any objection from anyone, I think it would be a good time to invite our city manager, Janine Jordan, to touch on things that we've kind of covered in the quick kind of lightning round robin that we've done here. I also want to mention that our finance staff, our chief finance staff person, Malia Brown, is also here with us. I missed earlier that she was on the call. She's a very important part of our management team and organizational structure over here. City manager, over to you for whatever you'd like to touch on or address. I think your mic's off, city manager. I'm sorry.
Hi there. Starting over. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't really have much to add other than to note that many of the noted goals are things that, certainly from a staff standpoint, we're aware of. Some of them we're more ready to begin working on immediately than others. But in any case, whatever priorities you all hand to us, we'll get working on them. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Any specific questions, just let me know.
Great. And that kind of provides a good segue, as we went around and I heard people weighing in on their topics. Seems pretty clear to me that working together on the Casper Aquifer Protection Plan is right at the top, and working together on, I guess, what I would describe as finding an agreement or a path forward with intergovernmental cooperation around the review and process for development occurring in that immediate interface outside of the direct city limit and then the county right out of there, what we used to call the donut. Statutorily, that arrangement has changed over the last couple of years, but I think we've heard around the table and identified that there's a desire to work together on integrating some of that development in that immediate interface area right outside. I think that would be towards the top of the list. I'm not trying to make a definitive statement here. I'm just kind of trying to summarize what we've covered so far. And then I heard some different comments from a couple of us, but not nearly as resoundingly, that maybe some cooperation around economic development and areas where we might work together. The Pilot Hill strikes me as an opportunity for us to cooperate and work together, maybe on some unified plans or strategies towards helping work with each other to make sure that is going to be the magnet for tourism and recreation that we believe it will be. I think also the concept of working together on the airport and how important that is to economic development endeavors is as well. I think it plays a key role. So I am ready to just go ahead and open it up now for a little bit more discussion. If other folks want to add anything that they think is important that hasn't been touched on yet or addressed, I think now's a good time to do that. Councilor O'Doherty?
I was busy taking notes from other councilors and forgot one of the points I wanted to make was how can we work together with the county to help the rollout of COVID vaccine and the information about the COVID vaccines. So I would love for us to be able to brainstorm or have staff tell us things that would be helpful on either side of the city or county. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I'm glad you brought that up. It's a really important topic that we wouldn't want to leave behind. Chairman Gosar, I think I'll go over to you there to add to anything right now, or maybe to Councilor Doherty's point, since I think you have some knowledge in that area.
Well, thanks, Councilor Doherty and Mayor Weaver. There is now a call center that is being operated through the university School of Aging. I'm sure it's not the School of Aging. I'm kind of aging's in there somewhere. So the number is 766-8222. It's 9 to 5, Mondays through Fridays. Today was the first day that people, right now we're vaccinating in the county people over 80 years old. And so people that should call and get themselves on the list and get them, those people will help them get appointments to be vaccinated. So that's been a nice collaborative effort between Albany County Public Health, UW, and Ivinson Memorial Hospital. There are also 2 web pages, and I'll put this in the chat so that you don't have to remember it, but it's ivinsonhospital.org/vaccine and also publichealthlaramie.org, where people can direct for forms and information about the COVID vaccine in Albany County. So I agree with you, but that's not enough, right? Every one of us can get that information out to our network and get that spread more widely than either the city or the county websites, or people sitting on our call. So.
Yeah, there's probably more to do there, and maybe we can identify some ways to do that. Councilor Doherty, I saw you.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the rec center would be a good place for us to, like if the rec center could be a vaccination center or something. It strikes me as a good place to do it, and people brought that up in the age-friendly Laramie meeting last week. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think there's also been discussion about maybe trying to find ways to organize places where folks could drive through vaccination areas, so we weren't congregating large numbers of people in the same area at a given time. And this is way outside my area of familiarity, but I've heard a couple of people mention that to me, and I know we have some big parking lots in this community that we might be able to think about using for an effort like that. But I think probably the sooner the better that we collectively brainstorm about some facilities that we could use for that, the better off we'll be. I'm not seeing anybody else with an eager hand up.
Commissioner Ibarra.
All right, yeah, Commissioner Ibarra, thank you.
Thank you. The only issue with that drive-through is that they require that you wait 15 minutes after you've had your vaccine. And that could be an issue as far as just pulling up if you're going to get your vaccine right away. Because people do have reactions, as minimal as they are. I received my vaccine last Friday just because I connected with the downtown community, interpreted for medical personnel throughout town. And I was required to wait 15 minutes. While I waited, there were 2 people who did have slight reactions. One was all flushed and they had to give her water and monitor her a little bit more. And the other one was just basically the same thing. So I'm not sure this drive-through kind of thing is really going to be something that we can do. And I think we need to inform the public that it can't be that easy. There are reasons why they require that you come in, and it's spaced out, and you have to come at the time that you're alive. It's so obviously only as much as 5 minutes before, and so that they don't get overcrowded, and trying to do the whole social distancing. So again, let's not try to promote the drive-through thing because people do have reactions. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Commissioner Ibarra, I'm not sure what's going on. Commissioners in general, we had a tough time picking up a lot of that from Commissioner Ibarra the last time. With her permission, I'm going to summarize because I could follow most of it. She was expressing some concerns about a drive-through vaccination process, given the need for people to wait and see if they've had a reaction of some type. And that then becomes an issue maybe if you're having people drive and get a vaccination, and then also have to wait the appropriate amount of time and have access to help if they need it after the vaccination. And I think that's a good point. I just threw that out there as a possible idea. I think there are a lot of different combinations of the ways we might find large areas where people could gather safely to receive vaccinations if they choose to do it that way. I think that was the general point of that. And like I said, I caught most of it. I saw several people indicating that they couldn't hear, and I understood that. And I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe it's just a matter of adjusting microphones. We're all doing the best we can with remote meetings, and we all appreciate everybody's efforts, and we understand it's not going to be perfect every time.
Tell me if you can hear me better now.
A little bit. It's clearer, but a little more distant than it was before.
So maybe you could try this one too, this mic, if that mic is somehow not working for you.
Cheeseburger, cheeseburger.
I heard cheeseburger. I don't see John Belushi, but I heard Commissioner Ibarra. All right. Yeah, that sounds all right. And Commissioner Ibarra, did I generally summarize what you were trying to get across there?
You did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Gee, thanks. Okay. I think it's a valid point, though. I mean, there's going to be some things that might be good ideas, but for other logistical reasons, they might not work out. In any case, I think finding opportunities where we can help with the vaccination effort is a great plan and a good idea, and something that we need to do. And that's coming up sooner than later. In fact, it's going on right now. That might be something where we might want to bring in more folks from the healthcare provider community to help flesh out that effort. But I think there are things we can do. And as Councilor Doherty mentioned, chief among those is maybe identifying facilities that we might be able to use and cooperate with each other. I'm looking around. Again, I don't see a lot of super eager hands up, and that's okay. But if there's something you want to add, I'll reiterate again. It seems like we've got some consensus taking shape around a few things. I wonder if we might have other folks from within an agency that would like to weigh in on any of the things that we've talked about so far. Like I said, I know that Mr. Kirch is here. We have.
Mayor Weaver, can we? Commissioner Richardson has a thought.
Please,
Mr. Mayor, Council. I would like to point out that the responsibility for distributing the vaccine rests solely with Albany County Public Health. And our role as commissioners and councilors is tangential. So I'm not inclined to spend a lot of time on it. The way that we help public health is respond when they ask us for help. And probably that's mostly providing facilities if they request that. So it's not something that we can lead. It's not our deal. So I'm ready to move to the next topic.
Oh, certainly. A point well taken. I've got a few other, I'm seeing a few other hands around here. Point well taken. And I want to just add that I think primarily what we're talking about is making sure that folks from Albany County Public Health feel comfortable reaching out for the use of facilities. I think that's where that discussion was going. But I'm going to go to Councilor Doherty and then.
Also, the dissemination of information. So there's a bunch of people that don't know what's going on. So if the more places, public places, we can get the information out to call Albany County Public Health or whatever you want us to do, we would need to disseminate the information. So the rec center, the senior center are examples of places that we can help disseminate the information. Thank you.
Yeah, good points all around. Commissioner Gosar, I think maybe at this point, what we might want to do as the city and the county commissioners and city council is perhaps reach out or go through the appropriate channels to public health and ask them how we can best support their efforts right now, and if they're even there in terms of their plans, with an eye towards disseminating information and providing facilities. I think that's a good capper to this issue, and it'll give us something to look into and then pick up on. Over to you, Chairman Gosar, for anything else on that.
No, I think you're right. I think it is one of those things that we provide information, and I would echo Mr. Richardson's statements that, not one of us that I'm familiar with, maybe Jessica, I know Jessica, our Councilor Stalder, can give the vaccination, so I'm not much help unless you want me to put something in the wire. But yeah, I think that's a great opportunity. And it looks like you have City Manager Jordan with her hand up.
That's right. City Manager Jordan.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission Chair. I just wanted to let you know that staff had initiated a dialogue with staff at Public Health probably 2 weeks ago now to do exactly what you're talking about. So I just wanted you to know that from the staff standpoint here, we have extended that offer, and particularly as it pertains to the Recreation Center, where we know we have a lot of seniors utilizing that facility, and we think it'd be a great facility for disseminating information, as you said, but also for whatever needs public health might have. So we're working with them at a staff level. We'll continue doing that. This is an important issue for the community.
That's great. Let's keep up good communication channels within the city and the county and together on where we're at with this. Check in with each other about it on a regular basis as we move forward with the effort. I think that'd be a good idea. All right. Well, it looks like 15 minutes ago, I felt like we had a lot of time. Now I'm feeling like we need to refocus up. Good discussion all the way around. One more time for bringing more topics up. Yep. Vice Mayor Pierce. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering if we could spend a little bit of time kind of digging in a little bit regarding issues related to water and the cap. If we could potentially agree upon drilling a well out near Tumbleweed and potentially sharing the cost of that. I think that might be I don't necessarily think that's part of the cap, but it might be something we want to talk about tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I wasn't certain if we were going to be prepared to get into specific policy actions. I'm willing to spend a little bit of time on this if I don't see any objection. I wonder if we might have an overview about what's being suggested here from a staff member from the city or the county who feels comfortable touching on that before we dig in much deeper. Not seeing a lot of volunteers, but I am willing to address it. City Manager Jordan, I see that you've.
You'll have to forgive me. I didn't hear entirely Vice Mayor Pierce's comment. I understood it had to do with the aquifer protection plan.
Yes, to a point, but Vice Mayor, why don't you restate that?
Yeah, so I was wondering if we could potentially agree upon sharing the costs of drilling a well near Tumbleweed, the Tumbleweed gas station, to to find out what's going on over there. I suspect it wouldn't be extremely expensive. Probably less than $10,000, somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000, and it would be nice to at least kick that up. And I don't think that's part of the cap plan, but I could be wrong.
Through you, Mayor. Vice Mayor Pierce, there has been some conversation about the installation of additional monitoring wells that might measure or help us get baseline and future measurements of any issues that could be there and then flowing downstream. Not that we know there are any, but the monitoring well would help. With respect to that conversation, I believe that Darren Parkin's been in conversation with some county folks we, of course, Darren works directly with me, so we're vetting that out for a potential budget request to the city council. I'm not aware yet of where the county might fall in that cost sharing, but obviously that's always my position. When we're approached by another agency, we'll always kind of start at a 50-50 cost sharing stance as we negotiate through that. So I won't dare to speak for the county, but I will let you know staff are aware of that, and we're preparing to bring forward a budget recommendation for you. One thing I'll note, though, that is complicating in this regard is, as I understand it right now, the location of the monitoring wells would likely be outside of the city of Laramie. And so that is one of the concerns that we have in terms of extraterritorial jurisdiction and wanting to understand, even if we cost share on the monitoring well, who would ultimately own that monitoring well? Would it be appropriate for the city to own it? Would it be appropriate for the county? And those are just some of the things we'll want to work through. But a very doable item if the two governing bodies want to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Pierce, how do you feel about that for an overview of that issue?
Yeah, I think that's great news. I'm just anxious to get out there and get it going.
Yeah, I don't think it's lost on anyone that there's been a lot of community focus and discussion around the Tumbleweed gas station development and potential impacts that may or may not occur with it regarding the aquifer. And there's been some discussion about that going on now for, I'd say, more than a year or so. Councilor Harrington, I saw that you were seeking recognition.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. More practical, less policy-based. We're heading into, I want to wind this back just a little bit, just so we are kicking off on I think on a sort of shared understanding foot. We're talking about several large cooperative things, and I just want to, I think it would be worth our time to spend a little bit of this evening figuring out who talks to who to make this start happening. So we can say, like, let's start a Casper Aquifer Protection Plan together, but who from the city talks to who at the county to initiate that process? And I think, that may be one of the easier ones that are on our sort of goal list to move forward. So I don't necessarily have that, at the city, we certainly rely on our staff very heavily. So I'm inclined to say our staff would have some ability to reach out to their counterpart or a commission appointed person, but I don't know how we navigate that necessarily. So I don't know if anybody else shares those concerns, but I think that's worth a conversation this evening or in the near future.
Councilor Harrington, thank you. I think that's a very reasonable aspect to bring up to this discussion. And my impression of that has been traditionally, the council at a policy level will say, here's an area where we need to work with the county, and we'll then have our city manager and the city management team approach either the commissioners or the designated staff person from the county government side to bring something, or that, as we're doing tonight, the council and the board of commissioners will get together. But then again, that still goes back, I think, towards the management folks from the city. Our day-to-day operations people take it from there after meetings like this have come to a close. I think it's less clear from my vantage point how that breaks out at the county level. But if this is in the neighborhood of what you wanted to talk about tonight, Councilor Harrington, I think we can probably get into that a little bit. Just give me the thumbs up if that's what.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, that's exactly right. I share your maybe confusion about where this goes to the county, and I think this is a unique opportunity to learn from the county who we should be talking to. So thank you.
Sure, City Manager. When you turn the camera on, sometimes I think you're looking for me to go to you if you want to address a point or part of that question there before we maybe go over to one of the county commissioners.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. I would just note that, excuse me, Council, you will be next Tuesday, so a week from tonight. You'll have your goals resolution in front of you. You may or may not know that. But I would suggest, of course, that if these are priority goals for the city, that you would adopt those as part of your goals and objectives for calendar 21. And then I'll let you guys work through the rest of the discussion about how best myself or others could convey those goals to the county and start working on them, assuming the county shares them. Thank you.
I appreciate that, City Manager, and it also is actually part and parcel of the discussion we're talking about. So from the City Council policy perspective, we'll adopt a policy position, and then the staff works to carry that out with other agencies or other folks that need to address it. But Chairman Gosar, I wonder what you'd like to add, and anybody over there on the Board of Commissioners would add to this discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Mayor Weaver. I think a process argument or a process discussion would be great. We're going to have things we may or may not disagree with, but how do we sort that out? What is the process that we go through? Do we do this once a quarter, right? And if there is a discussion, for instance, the aquifer, that seems to, you guys have staff, we do have a planning director. Those seem to be pretty straightforward people to go to, but what if it's not so straightforward? And what does that system look like? I think, and then agreeing on what to bring before everybody. I don't know if I know or if anybody shares the same knowledge of how many monitoring wells are at the APAWS, right? I think that matters. I think why the maps don't line up. I think some of that history matters. I think going forward and saying, well, there'll be 2 commissioners and 2 council members and staff, or it'll be 1 and 1. There will be the committee that will work on it, bring it to both bodies. That's kind of the discussion that I think would be helpful, so that we do have an issue, whether it's aquifer or the detention center or wherever else we can envision happens, that we have a system and a way forward to address that. We are a different entity for sure than the council, right? You do have a city manager. We don't have a county manager. And so that is different, but that's all right. Different doesn't mean better or worse. Sometimes I think we would love to have a county manager, and it would make things, our day a lot less long maybe, but be that as it may, we are where we are. And I think Jackie and Kayla would love us to have a county manager, because they become de facto county managers, right? And they've got regular 8 to 5, 9 to 5, 8 to 8 jobs. So, so I think that for me, the process of how do we get to a reasonable solution? How do we spend most people's time wisely? And then what does the process look like to hammer out this stuff, to bring to both the council and the commission to get a resolution or a way forward? That's the conversation that I think for me, would be helpful.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Commissioner Ibarra has something for you.
I echo everything that has been said about that, as far as definitely needing a discussion on process. But in that discussion too, I think we need to identify maybe some deadlines, some time schedule, as far as when these things are going to be met, whatever individual pieces, because this has been going on for some time, discussion or lack of action. And I think that's why it's become such a priority for most of the members on the council, as well as on the commission, and definitely out in the broader community. So that discussion needs to have some deadlines as well. We need to consider by when do we want to have this, by when, and obviously in a logical amount of time, but let's not let discussion go for so long that nothing is achieved, and we're here again in a year. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah,
Mr. Mayor. Heaver here. I would like to point out that in all areas of cooperation between the city and the county, committees or work groups can be set up. Anything related to the aquifer or planning or extraterritorial planning, the county, because we don't have home rule, we're required by statute to do things through our planner and the planning commission in a certain way. And so it might be, some of the things that are required might be hard to understand or counterintuitive to a group that has home rule. So I just wanted to point that out. I mean, those things will probably have to be led by the county because we have to follow state statute a certain way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that input and those points. The systems of government of local government between the county and the cities don't operate in the same parameters on many issues. That said, I think I heard some comment here that leads me to a point that I wanted to be clear about tonight, which is that I think there's a need and a way for us to spend some time this evening identifying and seeing if we all agree with the following. We need to have these joint meetings perhaps a bit more often than we've been used to in the past. In the past, I think it's been something like twice a year, maybe quarterly. Oftentimes that has included a meeting where we're looking at the community partners funding. That would be one of those meetings. And I think we have a list of topics here that are not simple. They're complicated, that are going to require some discussion and some public input and some information from people with the expertise to share with us as we take a look at some cooperation and some joint policy positions, if we can get there. And I think that's going to require more meetings as the two organizations than we have had in the past. I do. And I see Councilor Doherty, but you're gonna have to bear with me. I'm not quite finished with this. So I'd like some thought. I don't know that we have to get a calendar hammered out tonight, but I'd like some thought towards the idea of meeting more often and when that would make sense for our organizations to do that. This meeting here tonight is kind of an umbrella meeting, right? We're kind of talking about a lot of stuff and a little bit about process. And I envision a need to have more in-depth meetings on a shorter list of topics in the near future. Councilor Doherty, thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to say, as far as like shared positions, isn't that something our staff could say, you know, like, for example, a public information officer, that our staff comes up with something, proposes it, sends it over to county commission, and then you all decide, you know, how to handle that. Is that a simple solution for that efficiency that we're looking for of sharing staff? Thank you.
Councilor Doherty, I think I can actually speak to that, and here I go. I'll probably step in it and say something incorrect, but I would say this. I think if there's a position that already exists, and the two agencies have approved it, and we've approved an MOU about how we want to share such a position, then yeah, that's the way that works. But for new positions or something that we don't have that we might want to talk about sharing, you know, that would have to go through each agency's process of, you know, however they create a new position and whatever policy might exist around it. If I'm incorrect about that, you know, anybody that knows better, please jump in. But I think some of that is ready to go, you know, for existing positions or perhaps things that we have done in the past before and we have something to work off of. For new positions, I think it's a little more complicated, but I don't think you're off at all. Does anybody want to speak to the desire to have, at least on my part, to have more meetings around topics in intergovernmental cooperation? Vice Mayor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want Commissioner Ibarra's point about creating a timeline on some of these issues to be forgotten in this conversation. I think that was really wise, and I like the thought of maybe a council member or two and a commissioner and a couple select staff members or something getting together and kind of hammering out a timeline on these issues and bringing it back to the full body, and then maybe meeting when have it finished by when we meet in March potentially, to kind of affirm that timeline to some extent. I think that would be good, and I think that would keep us on track and kind of keep the ball rolling, because I suspect there are some things that we could do maybe quickly, right? And then there might be things that sadly, because we are government, may take the entire year. So I think we need to prioritize and somehow attach a timeline to the issues, so we can see what we can get hammered out right away and kind of move on from there. It's just a thought. So, and I love the idea of meeting quarterly. I think that'd be great. And we can kind of work it out as we go.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry I didn't emphasize that better earlier. Some of what I'm trying to get across there with the need to be more engaged with each other is to make sure that we are setting timelines and adhering to them. I'll say again, I don't think quarterly is going to cut it. I think some of these issues are pretty complicated and are going to require the two agencies to hear a lot from public and experts in the different areas. Commissioner Gosar, well, I see Councilor Somerville seeking recognition. So I'll ask you, Chairman Gosar, if you have anything you want to add, or anybody over there wants to jump in right now. Otherwise, we'll go over to Councilor Somerville.
Why don't we go to Councilor Somerville, and then I'll pop in after that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Honorable Chair. I just wanted to echo support for Mayor Weaver's suggestion. I think for a list like this, there's a lot of stuff on it, even though it might only technically be 4 or 5 topics deep. Some of those are very expansive. I would like to encourage the council to ask the commission to meet quarterly, maybe on a regular basis, to check in on all the progress, but to give some rein to the mayor and Mr. Chairman of the commission to set up a schedule for these more robust topics. So to set up meetings to discuss the aquifer or extraterritorial jurisdiction, and kind of give them some leeway to get that type going, and maybe also give them a little leeway to work together on maybe a timeline that they could bring back, work with city staff and whoever at the commission that they could bring back to the city council to set everything up in motion. But I just wanted to echo my support for that. Maybe Thursday nights is the new city council county commission activity.
I appreciate the support on that. Yeah, I mean, some of those, I strongly feel like some of those topics are going to deserve their own joint meetings between the two agencies. And we also have to work with the calendars for the county clerk, the county attorney, our city manager, and then of course the entirety of the council and the commission. Chairman Gosar.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor Weaver. I would kind of echo what Commissioner Richardson had to say. We have some limitations by just the sheer number of us, right? So any two of us get into a room, it's a public meeting, because that's a quorum. And so that is something that you guys don't share, that possibility. But I think putting 12 people in a room or in a Zoom meeting or anything to discuss really difficult issues makes for a very long evening, and maybe not maybe the best use of time. So could we prioritize 1 or 2 or 3 working groups? Could we assign a commission, or we would figure out how to get a commissioner on it, get staff on our side, you guys figure out council members and staff on your side, and then let's just hammer out some of the details, right? I think understanding what you would like to see for the aquifer would be great, because maybe we don't know that. Maybe we just assume we know what you would like to see, and maybe that same assumption is coming through from the council to the commission. And maybe we don't understand where either party is, quite honestly. And so I think bringing those discussions back to maybe a quarterly meeting would be a good use of time. And I think people's passions line up on certain things, and so they're more willing to take that ball and run with it. So that's just my thought. I just want to use people's times. There's 3 of us, and so 2 of us in a working group is almost a non-starter unless you want to publicize it as a public meeting. But doing some of the work in a less formal format would be maybe a useful way to get the ball rolling and getting a lot of the work done before we get to the major group.
Good, strong points made there. And I agree with them. I'll say this. I believe also that there is a duty to the public who may want to speak to both agencies at the same time instead of having to attend 2 different meetings to get points across to us on some of these larger issues that the community has a concern with. So that would be one factor in my thinking towards meeting together. I'm going to stick to my guns. I don't think 4 times a year is going to get it done effectively and in a way that's fair for the public, but we can talk about that more as we go on. Anybody else that wants to add to the discussion around this scheduling, timelines, deadlines? Commissioner Gabriel, I almost said. Councilor Gabriel, please.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I had to step aside for just a moment, but hopefully you haven't talked about this, but I wanted to bring up, it sounds like the commission is making a very strong effort to cooperate with the city, in that I mentioned that Joint Powers Environmental Advisory Committee that they've been talking about, and working with the city. And I was just wondering if Chair Gosar or any of the other commissioners would like to maybe add a little bit more about their thinking behind that, what their intention was in seeking this Joint Powers Board with the city.
Yeah, so Councilor Gabriel, I'll take as far as I know, and then I'll hand it over to Commissioner Richardson to discuss. We're not certain that the EAC, the Environmental Advisory Committee, was set up formally from our perspective when it was originally created. We're doing research. However, the commission thinks it's a very useful thing. I've been the representative or the liaison for the last 2 years, and I find that an amazing group willing to do, with a bunch of expertise, willing to do some really helpful, useful work for both organizations. So I think that is my understanding of us. If it hasn't been set up correctly from our end, then we want to set that up correctly. If there's a way to move it forward, then so be it. I think we see value in that work, and I hope you guys do too, because it's staffed with really amazing folks. So, Mr. Richardson, is there anything in addition to that?
Well, the only thought that I have, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, is that I feel really warm and fuzzy right now because everybody's in, lots of agreement and so on. But it's important for us to understand that because of the statutory processes that are required that we have to follow when it comes to planning in the county, whether the EAC is a joint powers board or an advisory committee, it ultimately is just an advisory committee when it comes to the county side, because there's a hierarchy in the process, and regardless of how they're set up, they can only make recommendations to the planner, the planning commission, and ultimately the commissioners. So right now, I mean, we know legally that that's a city board, and that we have sort of concurred with the city's appointments, but we don't make appointments to that board, and we don't have any legally described seat at the table at that board. It is a city board only. So if we're going to change that, we just have to understand the legal limitations of what a joint powered board can do and where that fits in with what a planning commission and ultimately the commissioners do. It's not as simple as it feels.
Councilor Doherty, I saw you.
Yeah, I mean, it is an advisory board, so the council can just, or the committee can just advise things to the body. And I guess you're saying they need to advise the planning commission because the county commissioners, the elected county commissioners are overridden by the planning commission, it sounds like. But in any case, it's a joint, it's an advisory board. So I don't see why it's such a statutory problem.
Mayor Weaver and Mr. Chair, if I could correct something that Aaron said there, the Planning and Zoning Commission does not override the county commissioners. It's the other way around. They are just a body that brings recommendations to us as well. They aren't the final say.
Some interesting points. Councilor Gabriel, I think I want to go back to you to see if these questions have helped you with what you were wanting to bring to the fore here. Councilor Gabriel.
I believe so. I was just curious from reading the minutes that the county was interested in forming this joint powers board and going to talk with city officials about how to put it all together. So it sounds like that the process is moving forward and some things to be worked out.
All right. Thank you, sir. City Manager Jordan.
I don't remember us doing that.
Sorry, I have two buttons to push to unmute myself, and I keep forgetting one of them. Thank you, Mayor. We were reading the minutes as well that Councilor Gabriel has referred to, and we have done some research, and I can provide some additional background information to you all after the fact if you'd like it. It's interesting, Councilor Gabriel, because the document I'm looking at was actually signed by you in 1993 as the chair of the Board of Commissioners at the time to create the EAC. So we've come, or you've come at least full circle, I guess. In any case, it is advisory. I just want to note that we've always treated it as an advisory board. If it were to become a joint powers board, and I'll be candid with you, I'm a little conflicted on that, but ultimately we'll let the attorneys weigh in. But my inclination is you wouldn't want your environmental committee to be joint powers because one, they wouldn't, I don't know what real powers they would ever have or that you would delegate to them. And remember, a joint powers board is really like a governmental entity. So anyway, we will provide some research to the county when the time is right because we were aware this conversation was likely to come up, but we're happy to take it on. It's important, and the reason I asked my staff to research the issue so we'd be ahead of it, is that historically when the city and county have updated the aquifer protection plan with our most recent iteration, also the one in the 90s and the one in the 1980s, I believe at every juncture, your environmental advisory committee that you shared was really the place where, to your point, Councilor or Mayor Weaver, where that public process was extensively conducted at the EAC level. So we need to figure out what we're going to do with EAC if we're going to successfully update the aquifer protection plan, if that's your ultimate goal. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. And wow, what an important thing to be talking about right now, because if that's going to be a critical piece of how we move forward on the CAP plan, then that's going to need to come before, that horse is going to need to come before the cart. I'm going to again suggest that we don't get too far into individual issues right now. I don't believe we've had the time or really the inclination for that to be the purpose of this meeting, but it is to touch on those things. That in itself sounds like something we need to get some serious details worked out with, and there's some large roles in that for the city attorney and the county attorney, from what I'm hearing. I think I also heard somebody maybe trying to jump in on the discussion. Maybe not. Could have just been an audio blip. I am feeling good about a lot of where this discussion has gone. I think Commissioner Richardson raises some good points about, it's one thing to say, you know, in spirit, we'd like to do some things. And I take well the message that we need some details before we can see how far we can go with some of these things, because we each have our own processes that we need to follow. I think Commissioner Gosar, I'm gonna ask you to weigh in here, but to me, it sounds like the chief things that there's some consensus on that are also going to require some more digging are update to the CAP plan and associated issues like monitoring well, what process we use to go to get us to the update, either an EAC as it stands now or something further that we may need to agree upon with each other. Development in the immediate adjacent city-county interface area. And there was another topic that was very much like that. Intergovernmental cooperation around maybe wastewater and some of the other things, and what committee and what channel that would need to go through as well. Commissioner Gosar?
Yeah, so I guess if we could just, because there's three of us, if we could get three priority pieces that we might seem to work on. My goal would be to try to come away with some sort of 3 different working groups and a process to bring information forward to both groups. I think it's just going to be easier to move quickly and more efficiently in smaller groups. Yeah, I just really do think that that's an important piece. And if Casper Aquifer, it seems like that is a big one. It seems like the extraterritorial piece, not only probably the zoning that goes on with that, but cooperation around that and economic development. I heard that repeatedly. That seems like a big piece. And then the EAC, maybe that's too narrow, but maybe you get some wins quickly, right?
Yeah.
And then you move on to another topic. And so EAC/efficiencies, I think that those things seem to be the themes that I hear, but it might not be the same themes that everybody hears. So that's my thought on it. I think we can, as commissioners, can probably handle one more meeting a week, maybe not 2, 3 more meetings a week. I don't know, I'm just speaking for myself. But we do oversee, we liaise with 18, 19 other boards and commissions in our county, and those are spread out between the 3 of us. And so just to give you a little background, not to whine, that's the work that we do, but just to give you a background on why maybe smaller groups with less of us might be a more useful thing for what we do.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Gosar, and I'm not opposed to that approach at all. I think probably where it'll shake out is somewhere in the middle. I don't think we can make a 12-member group decision on everything that we need to work together on. I respect that, and I agree with you. When we'll develop some processes that work. I think what seems like a prudent move, maybe tonight, is to leave this meeting with the understanding that the commission will choose someone to be on what I'll call a environmental issues working group, with the chief task right now being the update to the CAP plan, and maybe a secondary task of discussion around this EAC arrangement between the two agencies, and the council will do a couple of things in the interim, which is adopt these consensus issues that I think we've identified, the three of them: economic development, Casper aquifer update, and I'm going to include the EAC as a portion of that issue. If I don't see anybody telling me it needs to be separated, and extra, I'm not going to call it extraterritorial. I like this idea of whatever we want to call that immediate zone right outside the city limits and into the county.
Mr. Mayor, that could be a future growth plan.
Future growth plan. Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. That's exactly what we're talking about. The avoid the
growth intensive area.
Yeah. The growth intensive area, future growth plan. Those are three right here. And following the city manager's advice, we'll adopt those into our goals document as intergovernmental cooperation projects that we'll be working on over the year. And we'll appoint some willing and able council members to those to match up with commissioners that want to split those up. And I think we see some of that taking shape, but we can touch base on that later on. How does that sound, members of council? Nods and thumbs, great. Thank you. Councilor Schuster's on board for it. Councilor Stalder's there with us. Okay. Councilor Somerville giving the thumbs up. I like that. I think that brings us to a somewhat natural conclusion for conversation. But Commissioner Gosar, I'd give you and other commissioners a chance to add anything else.
Yeah, so could you just cover those three groups for me? I had CAP and the EAC. I had the economic development and the future growth area / extraterritorial. What was the third one, or did I put it?
No, I think you've got it. I think those are the three areas.
Good.
So with the EAC future growth plan.
Okay.
And economic.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr.
Sure.
Mayor, I would like to point out that I find this discussion a little bit esoteric. The reason being that we as a county government, and our roles are defined in statute, we're charged with providing certain infrastructure and services and the care of them. And we have a contractual arrangement with the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance to advise us on economic development, and that's what they do all day long. That's the only thing they do. So I don't think we should have a committee related to economic development because it's not a government function, except for our tangential role, which is our regulation and development process, which either encourages it or inhibits it. So I guess we can have that committee, or it would make sense for us to have that committee look at our codes, regulations, processes, as far as the regulatory part of it, so that the Chamber Business Alliance can advise their clients with some certainty about what the process is and how long it takes and what the regs are, things like that.
Thank you, Commissioner Richardson. Let me try to make it a little more concrete by way of what might be practical about a working group for that. I think the City Council sees its role as somewhat more involved with economic development than simply working with our contract for services agency. We've had a more expanded role than that. And I think what might be useful out of this is to work with those folks and see where they might be able to suggest that the two agencies work together in ways that will help enhance what they're trying to do for us. And if there are ways that the county and the city can do some things together that will complement, enhance, and further opportunities that they're trying to find for us, that would be, I think, the value that would come out of that committee. But if there's less consensus around that topic, we can go around here now and see if folks would like to take that off because they don't agree with that view, or if they would like to pursue it because perhaps together and then in discussions with the Chamber Alliance, identify some areas where we might be able to improve some things and find some ways to further economic development goals. So I'll look around and see if anybody's waiting to chime in on that topic, if they agree one way or the other, if they want to keep this on or if they'd like to pull it. Not seeing a lot of folks that want to weigh in on this. So Commissioner Gosar, do you have thoughts on that? And then I'll go to Vice Mayor Pierce.
Probably not any good thoughts on it, but so economic development is such a broad topic, and to some extent, I do agree with Commissioner Richardson. That's really not the government's entity. But if you're talking about broadband and economic development, now we might have a different conversation, right? And so I guess I don't know. My initial sense is to pull it. Is my vote, but so be it. That doesn't have to carry the day. Where else is there places that we see? For instance, I see efficiencies. I wrote down most everybody's discussions. I see efficiencies mentioned 3 or 4 times. I see intergovernmental cooperation and MOUs and that type of understanding. I'm not sure if that needs to be done or not. But I also think about those places that have done really amazing stuff around mental health, for instance. The city played well with the county, played well with the hospital, and everybody got on board with a plan that everybody created and contributed to, and that had a cohesive message throughout the county. And so that one place didn't put people that were mentally having a crisis into jail, where another person got them to the hospital right away, right? So how do we do that? And so I'm not sure where that would fit, or if that's even a topic worth discussing, but that's kind of some of the thoughts, the bigger issues that we can't work on by ourselves really effectively.
Yeah. All right. Message received loud and clear. It's not a hill that I need to die on if we don't think that's something that needs to exist. Okay, I've got a couple of hands here. So I'm going to go to the Vice Mayor since she had asked, and then I'm going to go to Councilor Harrington and then to City Manager Jordan. Vice Mayor?
I think Commissioner Gosar said most of what I was wanting to say in terms, assuming that I heard him correctly. And I think the only thing I would add in regard to economic development would be maybe instead of having that very broad title, we could kind of dig the specifics, avenues to that we could do in terms of our regulations to potentially enhance economic development.
All right. Perhaps as was suggested, if there are a specific area that's related, like broadband, that comes up, that might be something where we might convene a working group, but we don't necessarily have to get that hammered out right now. I think I'm hearing people on that, and that seems rational to me. Councilor Harrington?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with all those comments about sort of the maybe the devil's in the details of what this economic development subtopic would mean. If it is something that we would need to cooperate on, great. I think there are businesses that are more more appropriately cited in the county or in the city. And so I think in a lot of ways our sort of economic development, while it does relate, also has sort of different strengths than weaknesses. So I would my own personal opinion of this would be if issues arise, like broadband as the example, we should be prepared to work together on them. My feeling would be an intergovernmental relationship subcommittee of this group would be more useful to handle some of those MOUs and other, I think Chairman Gosar mentioned the detention center. Those sort of things are still on the, those are still in need of effort. They would fall under I think a better heading if we're talking about relationship rather than economic development.
Yeah, maybe a better use of time.
Right.
All right, I'm hearing this, and it looks like economic development is going off the list and changing into a cooperation, intergovernmental operations and cooperation group. City Manager Jordan. Mute button, City Manager. Mute button.
Second mute button off. Thank you. Through you, Mayor. With respect to economic development, it strikes me that I think we're all having conversation, but not everybody is maybe working from the same level of understanding. So if I could just give a quick update. So the city did complete an economic development plan. It was constructed through many, many, many public meetings in 2019. It was adopted by the City Council in 2020 and subsequently adopted by our partner entities, including LCBA, which we also contract with for economic development. What's concerning me here is that, and I'm not suggesting it needs to be on your platform, but I think before you decide, in order to get everybody to the same point of information, it might be advantageous to bring in our consultant to update the Board of Commissioners. Commission Chair Terry Jones sat on that committee all through 2019. It was our understanding that the county intended to co-adopt the economic development plan, but for whatever reason I don't understand, it was never moved forward. That plan addresses everything you've mentioned tonight: broadband, tourism, the airport, the Pilot Hill lands. In fact, Commission Chair Jones was very passionate about that plan, taking into account the potentiality of Pilot Hill and how that could affect tourism and other things. So, whether you want to make it a priority between the two bodies is one thing, but I think in either case, it would be important before you go very far down the economic development path in any regard to make sure that both of our bodies are up to date. And, maybe the plan we have is sufficient. I don't know. Maybe there's other things we'd like to do, but I'd be happy to bring in the consultant. We're already scheduling to bring them back into Laramie to update the university, where they've also had a change in leadership this year. And so I think it would make sense if the county would like a similar presentation, we could do that.
Thank you, City Manager. City Manager Jordan, as always, articulating a point far better than a member of the council is going to be able on an issue. Commissioner Gosar, again, I don't know that merits a dedicated working group, but some good points made there. Over to you.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I didn't know about that, but now I do. So Commissioner Richardson has something to share.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I am familiar with the economic development plan. I would like to reiterate that, and I was remiss because I left out infrastructure. So the government's role in economic development is infrastructure and regulation. All of the private processes that happen between banks, landowners, all of that kind of stuff, the business community, we don't really have any business putting our noses in. So the group that's working on the high intensity growth area could work with the outside experts like the Chamber Business Alliance and Tourism Board. Then we don't have to pay our people to do it, and they have funding streams that are set up, and that's what they do. So the point I'm trying to say is that we need a public-private partnership so that we can stay in our lane and think about infrastructure and regulation, not pull the levers on who comes or who doesn't or what. We just have to make it so they can land here.
It's a point well made that maybe what we're talking about here could fall under that that group, and that seems reasonable. So it might still be something that we include on our council on our policy goals for cooperating with the county on, but it doesn't need its own whole subcommittee necessarily. It could be an aspect and maybe one of the earliest projects that's worked on there. That seems reasonable to me. Anybody else want to throw in anything on that? I'm seeing some agreement there. Commissioner Gosar, how's that suit you? I think that's a good suggestion.
And if I'm hearing it correctly, an infrastructure piece, is that what you're thinking about? I wrote down future growth plan, and infrastructure would be part of that. Is that what you're thinking?
I think more or less. I think what we're thinking is discussions that involve economic development and an economic development plan that we hope that the county will jointly adopt with us is best suited to go under the umbrella, if you will, of the infrastructure group and the intergovernmental cooperation group, rather than having its own working group between the county and the city. It could fall under that umbrella and be one of the things that they tackle.
Cooperation infrastructure working group, Mr. Mayor, is that am I hearing that correctly?
That's what I'm referring to. Perhaps economic development issues would be best placed in there because as Commissioner Richardson explains, I think correctly, that's the largest role that government tends to play in economic development efforts. So that makes sense. And it does make sense to me.
It would be, Mr. Mayor, it would be hard to develop a growth plan without accompanying workable regulations and infrastructure plan. So the committee that would be tasked with the what we're going to call what used to be the donut, the high intensity growth area, because we do not. Something that has bothered me since I was elected, it is the prospect of the city getting boxed in. You can't build hotels. There's certain things you can't build without, fire suppression, which requires a lot of water. A connected sewer line to a wastewater plant. You can't have on-site septic systems or water treatment systems for bigger businesses. You just can't, right? And it's not an efficient way to grow. So, and actually, there are people in business in this town and in this county who know how to advise on those things. What makes somebody decide to choose another community over this one when things are pretty similar for them?
Yes, indeed. And you don't have to look too far around Wyoming to see communities that have been boxed in by growth out in the county that doesn't necessarily line up in a very logical way with the central municipality. Councilor O'Doherty?
I thought we did have with LCBA and our planning commission that to look at regulations and that we get suggestions frequently on things that would help development. Is that also in cooperation with the county, the LCBA, where they talk about regulations? Thank you.
Appreciate that question. And I think part of what we're trying to address here is if we can streamline that and make sure that we're acting on those in a timely fashion between the city and the county. City Manager Jordan?
Mayor, I just was going to answer the question if you'd like me to.
Yeah, please.
The LCBA Chair, Brad Enzi, co-chaired the steering committee for the Economic Development Plan with me and Heather Tupper of the Wyoming Business Council. That plan does address infrastructure, obviously. But I would agree with what Commissioner Richardson has said. In addition to infrastructure being essential to economic development, it's also going to be the central discussion point for any kind of future growth planning, because that's the issue, right? If you build that infrastructure, typically development will come. So it'll be central to both of those topics, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councilor O'Doherty, does that get to what you were asking?
I was just wondering if the county planning also works with LCBA, but we don't need to answer that here. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I think I might have heard someone else wanting to add there, perhaps not. Okay, well, Commissioner Gosar, getting us back to a little more focus, I think, is this these working groups we want to put together, and I think we've actually narrowed it down to two, really. Environmental issues focused on CAP and the future of the role of the EAC and what that may look like, and then a priority growth, high intensity growth area group that will be taking a hard look at choices that might facilitate economic development. Does that sound right to everybody? And I see the hands. I'm going to go to Commissioner Gosar, then I'll go to Councilor Somerville and Vice Mayor. Commissioner Gosar?
Well, as a person who likes symmetry, there's three of us, and if we only stop at two, one of us is going to get left out, and you know how that goes. It never ends well. So maybe there's something else we could talk about, and I think there probably is.
I agree.
And so what would that be? Mental health? Would it be health, right? Would it be efficiencies? I don't know. Just casting it out there. Just one more is all we need, right? To at least start, right?
Yeah, and with the council's patience and permission, I think this still gets us back to this sort of nebulous idea of the cooperation group, right? We've got one that's pretty focused on topics, but then we have this bigger one that's a little more squishy, but might roll some of those things into it. Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Honorable Chair of the Commission, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I think I would recommend that as the third group. They can work on the intergovernmental agreements. They could work on things like mental health or pieces along those lines that are kind of tangential, that are more squishy. I like the way you put that. So I would highly recommend that that's the third group.
The Squish Committee. All right. Who wanted to, Vice Mayor? Did you have something you wanted to add?
No, all topics are covered.
All right.
I like the idea of this squishy committee or this squish committee.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess that's the one that Commissioner Richardson would love to be on.
I'll take whatever you give me.
Anybody else on this? I concur that there's kind of a third catch-all here that needs to touch on some of these things that don't fit neatly in the other two areas. And that could end up being one that is important and can be a little bit adaptable as different things arise. I'm not seeing any other hands from the council. Commissioner Gosar, getting towards the 8 o'clock hour here. I think we've covered a lot of good area. What else do you think we should address this evening?
Commissioner Richardson or Commissioner Barra?
My only request is there any way that we could see this economic plan that was developed by the city and with cooperation from Former Commissioner Jones, I'd like to have a general idea of what it is, even if I don't serve on the committee that will be handling this.
I think so. I think it's easily done to get a copy of that document over to you. The summary and then the full plan is available. City Manager Jordan, do you want to address that? Can we get something over there?
Absolutely. I'll send the link. It's on our website, everybody, and I will send a link to our 3 commissioners with the final adopted plan with the caveat, 2 caveats. One, there is a possibility that we may be bringing our consultant back to do some work with us to update the plan in a post-COVID world. That was a bit of a curveball that wasn't expected in January of 2020 when the plan was adopted. And we would involve the county in that. And then secondly, if you would like the consultant to come and make a presentation to you, in addition to just reading through the plan on your own, please just contact my office and we can easily facilitate that for you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I really appreciate all of this discussion. I don't have anything else that I think has to be part of this broader discussion this evening. I think we're starting to rough out the general approach we want to take, and I'm optimistic about it. And I really appreciate the input that I've heard all the way around here. I don't have anything more that I would like to add personally. I don't see council members seeking to throw anything extra. I don't know if we want to maybe give a chunk of time here for members of the public that would like to touch on anything for us before we close it out, but I think that would be appropriate. Chair Gosar, is that your feeling as well?
Sure, and I guess, will you send over the working groups as you see them after we're finished here to us, and then we'll divvy it up as we will, or maybe my thought is maybe we would add some subtopics to those as a commission, and then maybe you guys could do that from your perspective, and then when those working groups work, they have something to go off of. And figuring out how that might work, when the meetings are, how long they would be, what the timeline is. I think those are all important conversations.
Absolutely. I agree completely, and I'm seeing nods of agreement all the way around. I think that's exactly how we should handle it. And council, my suggestion would be this, is that we appoint the members to those 3 groups as an official action at the next business meeting, along with adding these intergovernmental cooperation topics to the goals. And we'll get that over to the commissioners to then add to as they see fit. And Commissioner Gosar, if you want to add those subtopics ahead of next Tuesday through whatever process, please do so, and email those to the council and the city manager.
Do you just want the representative from the commission to those committees? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, and if you've found you've gotten far enough along to agree on some subtopics you wanted to add, as you mentioned, that would be fine too.
Okay. Yeah, we might not do it as a formal proceeding. I'm not sure that we necessarily have to.
I agree.
Working groups, but we'll let the attorney and Jackie correct me. That's generally how it goes.
Yep, I appreciate that. And I also want to give a word towards having an appreciation for the fact that people already have a tremendous amount of meetings, and the expectation should not be that we're going to, get these committees put together and start until we've had adequate time to consider everybody's schedules and work with that to make sure that it works for people. We understand, I think, all the way around that it's one more add, and it's important, but it's one more thing to add to the calendar. So we'll bear that in mind as we move forward as well. Councilor Gabriel, I see it popping up there. Did you want to add something?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. With that said, then I think it would be good to provide some time to see if there are members of the public that want to make comment on what we've discussed here this evening. And City Clerk, I do see a hand there from someone, and I'll keep my eyes peeled if you will help me in that effort. But Sarah Gorin, I do see that you've raised a hand to provide some comment, and please feel free to do that.
Okay, just trying to get myself unmuted there. Good evening, councilors and commissioners. Thank you very much. I'm Sarah Gorin at 508 South 11th in the city and the county. On behalf of Albany County Clean Water Advocates, I just want to thank you so much for the time and effort that you're putting into cooperation that can only benefit our community. And I'd also like to say quickly that we hope you won't overlook the immediately possible while looking further down the road. And I'm thinking specifically here of moving forward on things like a monitor well or wells that could be done fairly expeditiously while working toward the larger goals of the CAP update and development in the donut. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate those comments and your involvement and engagement with the city and the county government. Looking around for other hands for folks that might want to provide feedback to us about what we've talked about this evening. Not seeing any, but I'll give folks a moment if they'd like to weigh in with us before we move on with the City Council's portion of the work session. Chairman Gosar, I don't see other hands up for public comment on our topics that we've discussed together tonight. So with that, I think it's probably appropriate for us to convene or to end this portion of the work session and move on to the rest of the business that the council has tonight. But I'll check in with you one last time, and Commissioners Ibarra and Richardson.
Commissioner, do you have anything? No. Hey, Weaver, thanks. Councilors, thank you for your time. Thanks for setting this up. Although I'd love to have another hour of Zoom with you, I think we'll back off if we could. And so just to make sure that I know what to expect, that you guys will send us over what those subcommittee titles will be, and then we will flesh out who will be on which one and what other items that might be below each one. Maybe it's a short range, medium range, long-term range goals. I don't know, terms, ideas. That's just organizing my mind right now, but that doesn't have to happen. So, and then we'll also go to the website and get the economic development plan of 2019 that you guys had passed, or 2020 developed in 2019. So that's what we have. Is there anything I'm missing?
No, I think you've got it. And I think the general rough idea for those three committees is the environmental piece, which will address the EAC and the CAP plan, the infrastructure and priority growth issues group, and the we need to come up with an acceptable title for the working group around sort of the catch-all. And when you see that, it will have a better title than the catch-all. And you can look forward to receiving those.
Well, thank you guys. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll sign out.
Commissioners, we appreciate your time. Have a good evening.
Commissioners, we appreciate it.
Folks, do we want to break, or do we want to just get rolling into agenda review, updates, and comments?
I think we should take just a little break.
All right, let's take just a short break since we're probably all Zoom fatigued. Just a short break and get back here at 8 o'clock. If there isn't any objection. Very good. See you shortly. Super Bowl with the Buccaneers and the Kansas City Chiefs. Not fired up about that when I did have a chance at watching a Super Bowl featuring either or both the Packers and the Bills. But no, can't have that. I see Councilor Gabriel feels a little bit of that pain.
Hey, I'm a kid who grew up right near Lambeau Field. So you think I'm happy?
No, I
Not
know.
a chance.
Yeah, the vice mayor and I, yeah, we're not too happy about that. Would have been good to watch Josh Allen. It's looking good. But nope, we're gonna watch Tom Brady some more. Yay!
No, we're not going to watch him anymore. No, we're not.
They'll probably win too, dang it.
Got the agenda.
Got the agenda. All right. If everybody's got the agenda, give me a thumbs up and we'll get started on review. If you don't have it and it just comes through for a second, just take a look at it whenever. Does anybody want to get started on that with questions about anything they see? Questions about the consent agenda first? Councilor Stalder.
There we go. I was just wondering if there's a ballpark cost on the stormwater drainage funding feasibility study. Like, what would the ballpark cost of that be? That's number 9G.
Question on 9G. Not sure who we want to direct that towards. We have city manager, of course, and Malia. Jane, did you want to help us out with the ballpark cost for 9G? You got to make sure you hit the button.
Malia, if you know, feel free to jump in, but if not, we'll be happy to get that number for you. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. And I note that we have 2 9G items.
Janine, I was trying to get my camera on, but I'm having a hard time. But if you can hear me, I believe the study is about $40,000.
Okay.
City clerk is trying to speak too.
Please, city clerk.
Mr. Mayor, it looks like the amount's $42,105 with the contingency of $8,421 for a total of $50,526.
I hear you.
Thank you both. Thank you, Councilor Schuster, also for helping me keep track. I was looking at the document and I wasn't looking at the Zoom, so I couldn't see Nancy. All right. So then the next 9G, you'll note we have the budget meetings scheduled, and city manager, typically the practice is to schedule every block of those, and if we get through it faster, we leave a little bit of room in there for a fudge meeting or two. I assume that's the case this time around. All right. Anybody have any concerns or questions about those schedules for budget? We may not need 2 sessions for the capital plan. And then we've got, you'll see the 3 operating and a meeting for amendments. The practice has been, and I assume will be this time, for folks to get those amendment worksheets ahead of time in case they do have some. Councilor O'Doherty?
On number 14, what's WWTP? I'm sure once you say it, I'll remember.
Okay, is everybody all right with consent and would just like to jump into the regular agenda? Yeah, okay, looks like it. With the acronym there, WWTP.
Wastewater treatment plants.
Worldwide toilet paper was going to be my guess. I knew it had something to do with the toilet. All right, wastewater treatment plant. Okay. Anybody else have anything on the regular agenda that they'd like? We did move another, what I would call big ticket item in terms of time off of this for a future meeting from planning, because this is already going to be a substantial meeting, picking up on topics that we addressed last week and need to finish up on. Councilor Schuster, please.
It's off topic, but I just wanted to let everybody know their hard copy for the budget is in their mailboxes. They can stop by.
Nope, that's right on topic. I appreciate that. So you pick that up as you go in. Folks, did everybody receive the email about if you wanted to sign for the WARM agreement? You can do that electronically. You just have to make sure that you click on the document and click on the option that lets you mouse your signature onto it so that can be sent over. That's a little off topic too, but I know we need to get those signatures on the WARM agreement. And if you're going to be down at City Hall, of course, you can just go ahead and sign it when you're down there as well and pick up your hard copy of the budget. Let's see. I don't see anybody else with any other questions on the regular agenda. All right. Thank you, everybody. We can talk about any questions about future meetings if you have any. All right. We can move into council updates, and I'll go to the Vice Mayor.
Wow, thanks, Mayor. At this point, I don't really have any updates. I did attend my first, I'm not even prepared. I apologize. I attended my first Monolith Ranch committee meeting last week, I believe, and it went well. We have a new chair, and actually the same chair and vice chair, if I'm remembering correctly. And that's it for committee updates.
Okay. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard. I never know where to start. So you just came up on the roulette wheel that time. How about hands up for anybody that has an update that they want to provide? Okay. All right. I've got 3 in a row there, and I'll go to Councilor Gabriel, then Harrington, then Schuster. Councilor Gabriel?
Thank you, Mayor. The Parks Tree and Rec Board met a couple of weeks ago, allocated $406,000 to fund various projects in Laramie and Albany County. City had 4 allocations. $175,000 for the Rec Center Cost Recovery Fund, $35,000 for the pool boiler, $7,500 was awarded for Kiowa Park, $12,500 for Washington Park Playground upgrades. 16 total projects were funded. The recommendations will be forwarded on to the Albany County Rec Board and then finally to the Albany County School Board. Pilot Hill, incidentally, was awarded $5,000 for Phase 1 trails. That's my update.
I appreciate that. Councilor Gabriel, if I could ask a quick question. Was there some discussion around, was there a greater need for recapture on the rec center given interruptions over the course of this year from the amount last year?
No, it was about the same amount. They always ask for 150 to 175, and this year was the top priority for the Parks Tree and Rec Board, number 1 out of 16 projects.
Okay, I appreciate
So
that
we're
very much.
holding the
Councilor.
loan.
Good.
You bet.
Good. And I think that's been the trend. I was just curious if with some of the stuff we've had to deal with this year, if that might have been different. Appreciate the update.
I hear you.
Councilor Harrington?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The Laramie Public Art Coalition met at the end of last week. They are staying very busy. All of our sort of capital projects coming up have a public art component, including the fire training center and some things at the rec center. So they will be involved in the selection of those works. They're also working with the county on the courthouse art installation for their new addition. And the director has engaged about 20 community organizations, anything from a group of local musicians to relative theatrics and other organizations to start collectively working on diversity, equity, and inclusion component to all of the organizations. So trying to create a cohesive DEI plan across the board for nonprofits and other arts organizations. LPAC is taking a lead role on that. And then finally, they are very near the end of the Snowy Range Bridge art installation. So remember, these will be temporary, 3 to 5 years as per our agreement. So the first one will be installed middle of March. The second should be installed middle of April. And thanks to Councilor Pierce for sitting on that committee and helping select the artworks. They're both very cool. So I'm really excited for the community to see them. And then one last piece, just as a short update, there's no name for this group, but it is, we're calling it the Tourism Coalition. It's a group of stakeholders. It's an outgrowth of the Thrive Plan. They've been meeting for some time. I was the co-chair of the tourism and sort of cultural portion of the Thrive Plan. And so Scott Larson, the director of Visit Laramie, he and I have shifted into the role of co-chairing that group as well. And yesterday's meeting had between 30 and 35 stakeholders. And it's really, it's continuing that effort of sort of stakeholder and community input into what we want tourism to look like in Laramie and Albany County. So some exciting things are happening in that group. And we're just really getting through the sort of like fact-finding part and hearing from folks. And then I'll keep you all updated as sort of the action steps start to appear. That's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have a question for you because like Councilor O'Doherty, sometimes I need some help with these acronyms. You mentioned DEI plans for individual
Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
All right. Councilman Schuster, thank you for your patience. You had a hand up.
Thank you. Got to attend my first Wyoming Territorial Park Prison one. Great group. I actually work with one of them, and they are setting their calendar into place for all the events they hope to have out there this year. And they're going to make some improvements to their, whenever you go by there after a weekend, you see all the trailers in line. So they're trying to make an improvement to have 2 dump sites instead of 1. And we are talking about enhancements on that. They are having a local car show later on in May, I believe. And you can go to their site and see their entire calendar of events for the year too. So thank you. That's the only ones that have met since I have started this.
Appreciate that. A car show, I think that's a new one for the Territorial Park. I don't think they've done one of those before, but I always like to hear about those. I know you do too. Councilor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just realized I do have a quick update. Planning Commission met yesterday. They approved a variance, pretty run of the mill, and then they reviewed something that'll come to the council regarding 2 new, basically financial security options for developers. One is a cash drawdown escrow, and the other one is a no sale lot option that the council will get to consider to provide alternatives from financial security. So it'll be an interesting conversation. I'm not entirely sure I understood all of the reasons to have of those yet, but certainly Planning Department has quite a bit of information to present to the council on that.
All right. Appreciate that very much. Councilor O'Doherty.
The chair of the EAC sent us an email letting us know that the Senate File 16 that would hurt our net metering efforts is going to be introduced on tomorrow morning. Third and final vote is anticipated to occur on Thursday. And I guess between the mayor and I, we need to make sure that our senators have seen our letter. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, and Councilor O'Doherty, are you heading that up to make sure that those two senators receive that letter, or do you need some help?
Talk to you after the meeting. Yeah, that's
okay. All right. All right. And I'm not seeing any other hands. Vice Mayor, I think I'll provide our council members with just a quick recap. We met with University President Seidel, the first of quarterly meetings with the Vice Mayor and I. City Manager Jordan was there, and Bill Mai from the university. It was a good meeting. It was more of a meet and greet, but we did touch on a couple of topics, and it was a realistic meeting about areas for cooperation with the university, and also areas where we acknowledge we have some further discussions that we need to have. I'll put it that way. But it was a realistic meeting. It was a good meeting. We had a meeting with an advisory group working with the city manager on the public safety budget. And that was an initial meeting, and I'll keep you updated as we move forward. Councilor Schuster, I sent an email recap of that with as much detail as I could, and I'll do that for anybody that can't make those. They're pretty straightforward, and we as a group will talk about those things during the budget process as well, so you won't miss anything from those. I think that's about it in terms of updates, unless anybody else has found one that they haven't shared yet. All right. I think now would be a good time for us to move into comments. We're making okay on the clock for our work session. So let's go into council comments and looking for hands. Okay. Don't see any. And if that's the case, then I think I'd like to move to public comment and see if we have any hands. Some folks, it seems like, have been on the call with us for some time, but I don't know that they're still here or not, and if they have anything to add. So I'll wait for a hand or for someone to let the city clerk know.
So if you'd like to make a public comment, you can also unmute yourself and I can see that.
Okay. Doesn't seem like we have any takers. Well, folks, I think one thing I'd like to say is that I'm glad we were able to get together with the commissioners for a joint meeting tonight. I appreciate what everybody contributed to that, and I think we'll be able to do something valuable with it as long as we stay focused on the things that we talked about. City Manager, did you want to kind of recap on anything there? One thing I think we need to make sure is on someone's to-do list is what we want to call that third committee, in all seriousness, because I think it could probably be called the intergovernmental cooperations. I mean, that's good enough. I think that covers a broad enough topic area, and I'm pretty sure that all the commissioners will know what we mean when we say that. And give some thought towards which of those you might want to contribute to. City Manager and City Clerk, I'd like to get those members adopted through a process on the agenda. Is that something we can add to the agenda without problems for next week? Do we feel like that needs to be done formally? Maybe it doesn't. But, or do
Mayor, I will add. Oh, sorry.
No, please go
Mayor,
ahead.
I'll add that to the goal resolution.
Okay.
And I think we can do it in one single action. That's what I envision. I'll double check that Bob and Nancy are okay with it, but I agree with you. That'd be the easiest way, I think, to do that. We'll just weave it into that goal adoption.
All right. And then, counselors, my question to you is, my request would be, if you could think about that over the course of the rest of this week and get in touch with me about where you'd want to go. I think there's plenty to do that is interesting in a couple of different areas. So, you know, if I get 3 people that want to both be on, you know, intergovernmental cooperation and environmental, I don't know that we would do that. I would say this to you all: if it's something that is already dealing with work that you're already doing with boards and commissions that you serve on or that you liaise to, that would make sense to me that you would sign up for one of those. Does that make good sense to the rest of you? So that we're not getting too all over the place with what we're doing? Okay. City Manager?
I was just going to mention, with 3 boards, if you had 3 members on each, that would give everyone something to do, because I know you all just don't have enough to do already.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think a good approach is this is related to committees or boards and commissions that I'm already on. So to try to kind of make it workflow, you know, as best we can while adding something else, that'd be the way to go. But think about that and let us all know just through the group council email, maybe, what your preferences would be. And then I'll be in touch with you about whether that's going to work, unless the council's preference is for us to, you know, have to bring that into a vote. If there's competition, I don't think we need to do that, but I'll leave it to you. I think we can work that out amongst ourselves. I'm happy to be on any of them. So that frees up a spot. Okay. I don't see anybody dying to add more to that. Anything else from anybody on council or staff before we close the work session? All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there. I really appreciate it. And we will see you at the next meeting. Thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.